Hey all, welcome back. Let's get right into it. So today we look at IMM 5532, which is the Relationship Information and Sponsorship Evaluation form. So you can get the form from your dashboard, just download it from right here, and then you can open it up on Adobe Reader. Now, before we begin, if you are using a Mac, do not download and fill this form on Adobe Reader because it does not let you digitally sign it. So what that means is you cannot type in your name if you are filling it on Adobe Reader, but if you do it on the Mozilla Firefox browser, this will allow you to type your name and sign it, and we'll take a look at how to do that in the end. And for Windows users, you can complete the form on Adobe Reader and then click on File and then Print to PDF, and that will save a new version of the form that can be digitally signed. Now those instructions are mentioned on the 5289 guide. If we click on Gather Documents and go to 5532, it says here to digitally sign the form, you must first complete the form and select Print to PDF. This will create a new version of the form that can be digitally signed. Now this does not work on Mac still, but it does work for Windows. So first let's take a look at how to fill the form. So just get started with the personal information about the sponsor and the principal applicant. So just put in your name as per the passport for the sponsor and spouse, and date of birth, and client ID would be same as the UCI number. So for the spouse or sponsor, you can find the UCI number on their PR card or COPR, and for the principal applicant, you can either find it on your biometrics instructions letter or also your work permit or whatever document that you have. So part A is sponsorship evaluation and information about the sponsor, and this is supposed to be filled out by the sponsor, and so it requires the sponsor's details. So the first one is sponsor's employment history. Now it says here, give details of all your employers you have worked for over the past 5 years. Make sure there are no gaps. Now no gaps really means the from date on your newer history should be on the same or immediately after the to date of your previous history. So there should be no gap. So if we look at it from the oldest, then this ends on May 2019 and immediately begins on June 2019, the next one. And then for this one, it ends on 07/2023, and then the next history immediately begins on 07/2023. So make sure there are no gaps because it's specifically mentioned here. And it says if you are unemployed, explain how you supported yourself, and if you're self-employed, again write the name of your business and date it was established, and then gross amount for your monthly income before taxes. So enter this information, the sponsor's most recent to oldest employment history, and the dates you can just enter for example 2023-07 in one go, and Adobe Reader should put the dash for you. And for the address, just put the entire address of your employer up till the name of the country, and then for the phone number, it says telephone number for each employer. So for the phone number, you can put in either your supervisor's phone number, or if your employer has a number on Google, just search for your employer's name, and if you find the number for your branch or for your office, you can put in that number. And just put in your occupation and then monthly gross income. So check your sponsor's pay stub and put the number. So my wife gets paid bi-weekly every Friday, and so I multiplied her bi-weekly gross salary by 2 and I put that number. And as you can see, I also put my wife's part-time jobs. I also put that she was unemployed for this duration, and I said supported by family. And what I also had to do was these 5 rows were not enough for me to fill her 5 years history. So I created a similar looking table on Microsoft Word and uploaded that document as an additional supporting document. So I can show that here. If I go here, So this is how I labeled the document, and we'll look at in future videos how we have to label the supporting documents. It's basically like this, and I named it IMM 5532 continued, and this is what it looked like. So a table that looks similar to the form, and then I just put in the extra date that I needed to complete the 5 years. So getting back to the form, the second question is other sponsorships. Have you ever sponsored in the past, or are you currently sponsoring other members of your family in a different application? So no. Go to question 3. Other financially dependent people. Again, this did not apply, so I just put in NA here. Level of education. Now this is for the sponsor, remember. So for this, it asks to select the highest level of education. So I guess it would make sense to just select something like college or university, since my wife had completed her bachelor's, but I actually selected all 3 and put in the number of years. So 8 for primary school, 4 for secondary, and then 4 again for bachelor's, since she completed a bachelor's here. I guess both would work, but this is what I did, and my application was approved. And then for the address history, similarly, it's for the last 5 years and in a reverse chronological order, so from most recent to oldest, and again make sure there are no gaps. Then question 6 asks residence in Canada. Do you live in Canada now? So yes, this should be yes unless your spouse or sponsor is a citizen, because only citizens can sponsor while they are residing outside Canada. And then previous relationships. Have you ever been married or in common law relationship with another person? So for my wife, my sponsor, it was no. And if yes, then just enter the information as asked here. And I think if yes, and you do have a date of divorce or separation, then I think you have to upload supporting documents for that as well. So, but in my case, it was not applicable, so I just checked no and moved on. And then finally, consent to disclose. So just select yes here, and then for declaration of sponsor, your sponsor has to sign, so your spouse, if you are the principal applicant. So make sure your spouse or sponsor signs this and fills the information in their section. Now part B is information about the principal applicant, and to be filled out by the principal applicant, so it requires the PA's information. And first one is, before this relationship, was your sponsor related to you in any way? So it was no, and since I just selected no here, I left these boxes empty. But since in this one there was no checkbox, I put in NA. So do you have any relatives, including uncles, aunts, cousins, etc., living in Canada? So for me it was no, so I just put in NA here. If yes, then just put in your relatives information. Have you ever been married or in a common law relationship with another person? So again, it was no for me, so I just selected no and moved on. And then consent to disclose, again, just select yes, and then you have to put in your name just to digitally sign it. And coming on to part C. So part C is information about the relationship to be filled by both the principal applicant and the sponsor. So I've written the same answers as I did for my application, which was approved. So just fill this out honestly, tell your story. You will be attaching additional documents to prove whatever you are saying here. And let's see what the first question is. So it says, when was the first time you met in person? So I put in the date and then where. So I put in the name of our junior college or high school, and I just put in the address, since that's where we met, and describe the circumstances of your first meeting. So we met in the computer lab of our high school after volunteering to help our teachers with data entry. So this was the true story. This is how we met. So just in one line summarize how you met, because it does not let you add more than this. There's a limit to how much you can type here. And then, did anyone introduce you? In our case, it was no. And if it's yes for you, then just write the name of the person and who they are. Did you have any contact before you met in person? So in my case, it was no. But if it's yes for you, then just give the details as it's asked here. And then, are you living together now? So yes. And if yes, how long have you been cohabiting, living together? So for this I answered since December 2022. That's when we got married, and then these many months as of the month in which I applied. So just put in the number of months you have been living together as of whenever you submit your application. Then if no, explain why not. If you are not living together, have you visited each other during your relationship? So I did not check anything here, just put in any in this box. What languages do you use when communicating with each other? Just put in English and Hindi. How often do you communicate when you're not together, and how? So we are living together, it's an inland application, so this question can be confusing. So I just put in every day via FaceTime, video call, WhatsApp, Messenger, and other social media such as Instagram. And do your close friends and family and children know about your relationship? So this was true for me, so I selected yes, and then give the details below. So I inputted my family's name, so my parents and my spouse's parents. So I put in my parents' names first, and then are they related to the sponsor or principal applicant? So since I was the principal applicant, I wrote principal applicant here. And then relationship, so this was my father. And for date when they met the sponsor or principal applicant, I put in the date when my spouse met my parents. So she met them on the same day. So both for father and mother, it was the same day. Now I did see a video where somebody puts in the date of birth as to when they themselves meet their father or mother, and that didn't make any sense to me. So I did it this way. And then even for my wife's family, I put her mother's name and then her brother's name, and then when I met them. So this would be relationship to the sponsor. So you are writing, are they related to the sponsor or principal applicant? So we have written sponsor here, and then who they are, and then this date will be when I met them, so when the principal applicant met them. Then if you are married, answer below. If not, go to question 9. So was your marriage arranged? So for me it was not, so I selected no here. If it's yes for you, then again just describe the circumstances. Were there any formal ceremonies or events to recognize or celebrate your relationship? For example, engagement, traditional or customary marriage. So for me it was yes, so I selected yes here, and then I gave the details here. So I did have my wedding ceremony in Vancouver itself, and number of guests, and then it was performed by the marriage committee. The year before we had an engagement ceremony in Mumbai, that's where I'm from, and it was just performed by family. So this is what I put. So just put in whatever is applicable to you. And did any of the following people go to any of the events above? So principal applicant's parents, yes. Principal applicant children, so I didn't answer yes or no because it's not applicable. Principal applicants, other family members, yes. Sponsor's parents, sponsor's children, sponsor, other family members or relatives. So for children, I left these options blank, and then it says here, if any of the people listed above did not participate, explain why. So I just wrote we, the principal applicant and sponsor, do not have any children. And are either of you pregnant? So I selected no here. And then, is there more information that you wish to support your relationship? So I just put in a small paragraph on how we met, what our story is. So just saying that we met on this date in high school, started dating a month later, and then we were in a long distance relationship for 3 years, and then we decided to get married after 7 years of knowing each other. So this was the honest, true story. So just enter it honestly for yourself as well. And then you just have to sign it. So the sponsor has to sign here by typing their name, and similarly the principal applicant here. Now on Mac, you cannot type the name like we discussed earlier. So you just enter the date. You can enter the date, but you can't sign it. So like I earlier said, open this form on Mozilla Firefox browser. So let's take a look at how to do that. So I just searched the name of the form, and opened it from the guide. So again, if you're using a Mac, fill and sign the form completely on the Firefox browser, since it will help you save time. So just fill in all your information, and then you can type in your name here. The sponsor types in their name here, the principal applicant in part B, and then in the end, both the sponsor and the principal applicant. And then for the interpreter declaration, I just put in any, since it did not apply. And if you're a Windows user, like I mentioned earlier, you can click on File and save a copy of the form, and that will allow you to type in your name on Adobe Reader itself. So once you're done with signing the form and filling all your information, double check that you've filled in everything right, and then save the form, and then go to your PR portal and just upload it from the folder that you have saved it in. So just keep the name, the label the same as it was when you downloaded it, and just upload it on the portal and you should be good. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. This was it for this video. If you did find value from it, please be sure to drop a like and a comment, and I'll see you in the next one.